Well, this is a story that is really close to our hearts. It is a story of resilience. It's a story of surprises, unexpected twists and turns, and a million little miracles. And about spring of 2022, we got the surprise of our life. We were originally told that we wouldn't be able to have kids, that it would be a really, really hard journey to have kids. And you said it in a way that it was like you should take a pregnancy test, but you didn't want to say it. He saw changes.
Oh, yeah.
He saw changes and he was like, that was his hint to take a test. And I was like, I know my body. You don't need to tell me I know my body. And then a week later, I was like, you know what? Maybe I do need to take a test. Like, maybe I do. But I was like, there's no way it's positive because we had been undergoing fertility testing for months. Ended up going to the doctor that Monday and found out I was 8 weeks pregnant. Everybody in the room was just shocked. I think we were in shock for about a month.
Prior to that, we had made peace with the idea of us not having kids. And we were like, oh, we're gonna do all these great things to sort of make our life as joyful as possible before we really dive into adopting. So that was something that big. And then once we confirmed with the doctor, just her elation really sort of actualized what happened and what was happening. And
I was shocked.
It allowed me to prepare for what I felt like I needed to prepare for.
Yeah. And so we kind of just went on a journey of slowly telling close family and friends. And I had a really uneventful pregnancy. I was working and I was traveling, and the normal and the uneventfulness changed on November 7th, 2022. I was traveling for work. It was one of my last trips. My birth team was like, oh yeah, it's totally fine because all my tests were normal. Wasn't experiencing any crazy symptoms. And early that morning, I noticed that there was a trickle. And I was like, I know, I ain't just pee on myself. Like, I ain't peed on myself the entire pregnancy. Got in the bathroom and I was like, oh, that's not pee. So I start texting my midwife, my doula, other people I knew who were pregnant who had weird pregnancy symptoms, because like there's a lot of weird pregnancy symptoms that people don't tell you about. And I was like, maybe this is one of them. Not thinking, okay, like this is something serious. I'm like, okay, literally go back to work, but it kept happening. And I was like, oh, I think I need to go to the hospital. But I was like, oh, but I have a meeting, so I'm gonna do the meeting. And then I'm gonna go to the hospital. Then I called Des on the way up to my hotel room. I was like, hey, so this is happening. But I think it's normal. Like, but I'm gonna go get checked out, and I'll let you know what's going on. And I don't know what was going through your head. What was going through your head when I told you that?
I was at work. I was working at the time, and you called me about random things. So I just thought this was another random thing that's occurring about pregnancy, because you really have this desire for your husband to experience what you experience in pregnancy.
Yeah, because you did this. Like, he did this to me, and I feel like you should partake in like all the things that you help contribute to.
Yeah, and so I wasn't as shocked. I did catch a hint of your tone, like there was a bit of worry. Because you're going to your meeting, I assume that as a rational person, you would be like, okay, I'm okay, I'll go to this meeting and then I'll figure out what was going on.
Yeah.
And so I was piggybacking off those actions and not overreacting. And so that sort of helped me find solace and peace. But I was definitely looking forward to the next call because I didn't know what to expect, but I was expecting it because usually you're really good at sharing your experiences.
Shortly after that call, getting ready for my meeting, and there was like just this gush. Like, it's like something out of a movie. And I feel bad for whoever had to clean up that hotel room. And I was like, oh, I need to go to the hospital. So I called my manager, I called my other team lead, and I said, hey, I'm experiencing some weird pregnancy symptoms. I think I'm gonna go to the hospital. I'll be back though. Like, once they fix it, like, I'll be back and we'll be good to go, but just wanted to let you know. And they were like, I was gonna catch an Uber. I was just like, I'm fine, I'm not in pain. And they're like, absolutely not. She's taking you to the hospital. That morning, they ran a ton of tests. They ended up transferring me to a specialized hospital. They were confident they would be able to keep me pregnant, and they didn't really want to name it as, your water broke, because they weren't 100% sure that was the case. 50 more tests, I haven't eaten. I'm like, y'all, I'm pregnant, I'm hungry, when can I eat? And I see a bunch of specialists, they're like running more tests, and they're like, well, there's one more test that we need to run, but we need to run it the next day, because you've had so many tests, we don't want to, it can get contaminated. So we're just gonna admit you overnight, and we'll go from there. So Des was already on his way, my parents were on their way. Things were weird, but it was all gonna work out. They're gonna do whatever they need to do, and I was gonna go back to work. I was going home, I was gonna work, and that was it. Eventually, before they transferred me up to the high-risk department, she checks me, and she was like, well, sorry to say this, but welcome to Florida. You're gonna be here for the rest of your pregnancy. And I'm looking at her like, this is not in my plans. And she's like, we're gonna try to keep you pregnant for 8 weeks. And I'm like, keep 8 weeks, and at this point, I think Des was on a plane, so I didn't tell you. They transferred me up to the high-risk department. They set me up on 50 million monitors, have my room, and they're like, oh, well, this specialist, head of this department, needs to see you to go over the plan for the next 8 weeks. And he gets to the room, goes over the whole plan and all the things that they're gonna do. And I was like, okay, he sounded calm, I was calm, I wasn't in pain. And, they're monitoring me, and they can hear her heartbeat, they can hear her, and nothing is happening. And fast forward, he's like, you can finally eat. And I'm like, hallelujah, I'm starving at this point. They deliver my food, I'm doing a happy dance. And as the guy delivering the food leaves, another doctor walks in, and I'm like, dang it, I had my fork in my hand and the mac and cheese close to my mouth. And he comes in, and he was like, hey, I'm the doctor on call, just want to check you out. I've heard the things, and looks like things are going well, X, Y, and Z. And he's like, can I do a check? I said, well, they wanted to do a test in the morning, but something just told me, tell him yes. And I said, yes, but can I eat while you do this? And he laughed, and he was like, yeah, you can eat. And so the nurse helped get me in position, and he did the test, and he has a normal voice, no concern at all in his voice, none. And he looks at the nurse, and he said, I'm gonna need all hands. And all I see is blood. And I'm looking at him, and I'm like, what you mean? Like, in my head, I'm like, what you mean all hands? Like, what do you mean? You need what are all hands? What is this? I'm literally speechless, stuck. And he looks at me, and he's like, Alexis, breathe. He's like, you're bleeding, you're 5 centimeters dilated. We're taking you to labor and delivery. And I'm like, I'm in no pain. What do you mean I'm bleeding? How am I dilated, like halfway? And all of a sudden, just a ton of nurses and doctors and techs and people rush into the room, and they're preparing me. And I'm like, I need to call my husband. Can you get my phone? I call you, and you were boarding your flight. And I said, I don't even know what I said. I think I said, like, I'm 5 centimeters dilated or something, and they're taking me to labor and delivery.
There's a lot of variables I could not control, and so I was just trying to contain myself and, just allow myself to I wanted to manage my expectations. Because I did not want to be unrealistic and say, I'm gonna get there, and then everything is gonna happen according to how we planned it. Because at that point, I had threw the plan out the window, and I was just like,
it was gone.
we're just relying on God here and allowing ourselves just to be in His will, and just so literally saying, Jesus, take the wheel. And so I was trying to find peace. When you called, I was getting on a plane that flew into Orlando.
Yeah. And it was a short flight. Like, I'm thinking, okay, there's plenty of time for him to get to the hospital. I'm 5 centimeters. I got 5 centimeters to go. we're in this. Like, he's gonna make it. He's gonna make it to the hospital. He's gonna be here for the birth of his first child. And after we got off the phone, my first contraction hit, like with a vengeance. It was like my body was waiting for me to get off the phone with him. And the doctor is coaching me through like how to experience the contraction. Because mind you, I have not had one birth class at this point. My birth classes started the next week. So all I know about birth is from what my friends have told me, YouTube University, and the Google. Like that's all I know about birth. They're coaching me basically through my contraction and what to feel. And then all of a sudden they're running me to labor and delivery. And that's when the tears, like that's when I started crying. Because I was like, they're not like walking. Like up until this point, everyone's been calm the whole day. And I hadn't been in pain. But at this moment, they're running me to labor and delivery, and people are moving. It's like something out of like TV or the movies where people are moving out of the way, and I'm like, oh crap, he may not make it. Like they're rushing for a reason. Fast forward, the team is amazing. They assist and they help, and our daughter decides to make a entrance into the world. I think 13 weeks early. I had just turned 27 weeks on the dot that day. And I don't know what it's called, but she was actually born in her sac, which they were like, it's super rare for this to happen. And the crazy thing is she still had fluid around her. So my water didn't even like break. We ended up finding out that I had premature rupture of the membranes, which is also known as pre-prom. So it was like a kind of like a leak in or a tear in my sac. But yeah, she still had like water around her, and they're working on her, and I'm watching them work on her. And you know, the neonatologist comes over to me. Half the stuff I do not remember what she says, but what I do remember, she said, "We're gonna bring your baby over, and we're gonna let you hold her for a second, but we have to get her to the NICU." As they're putting her in my arms, Des calls, and I don't even remember where the phone came from. Someone had my phone, and as they're putting her in my arms, someone's putting the phone on me and putting it on speaker, and I was like, "Honey, you won't believe it. I'm holding your daughter."
I think we were just getting off the plane. I was getting ready to book a 30, 40-minute Uber drive to the hospital. And man, hearing that, I was just like, I couldn't even relish on the fact that I missed it. But I think I knew you could do it. I think I remember mentioning to you over the phone prior to you going into labor, saying that, you know, you're strong, like you can do this, like if anyone can do this, like you're of a family of strong women who've not only been resilient, but were, you know, able to weather through the storm no matter what it was. At that point, you did all the heavy lifting. You did all that stuff by yourself, maybe with a coworker. It was for you, and it's something that you could definitely handle. But I would have preferred to be there with you and have been a support system on the sideline throughout the entire process. But it was shocking. It definitely took me aback for a second. I had to, you know, pray a little bit, think on it, because it was just exciting.
Yeah, and I think I was running on adrenaline at this point, but you know, he eventually got to the hospital, and that started our over 3-month journey in the NICU. And essentially we were in Orlando for about 3 months and fought our way back to Texas, and eventually we were able to get transferred to a children's hospital, and our daughter was in the NICU for 102 days. I would say the journey was filled with a lot of ups, a lot of downs, unexpected turns and twists, a whole lot of prayers. I would say one of the hardest, if not the hardest season to date that we've experienced individually and as a couple, but just having our community and support, our family, and really amazing staff, like, and strangers who became family. It was an emotional roller coaster. The days were really long and the weeks were really short. And there were a ton of holidays that we missed, like with family and stuff being there.
So I remember arriving to the hospital, and I set my mind up that day is that I will be there to support you in any way possible. But if anything, we're going to establish a foundation, like a consistency. We're going to do the little things. We're going to learn as much as we can. And we're going to not let our emotions dictate us during this moment, because at this moment, we were truly in the hands of God. And I was just like, it would do us a disservice to doubt in this moment. And so I was like, we can just control what we can control. We would be there for her each and every day. We would learn as much as we can learn for the day when we come home. And beyond that, for you, like, I would do whatever it takes to try to facilitate the healing process that was required on your end, because you had experienced so much within the span of 24 hours. And then to compound that, you missing out on a lot of different things that you planned for, for the pregnancy, as well as so many other things, holidays in the hospital, the abnormal things. And so that's why, like, during that moment, I was just like very scheduled. It was just regimented, because I needed to be the assurance to let you know that if you're not there, I'm there. And so much so to where like nothing else mattered. I was just there. I would work from there. I would spend all my time from there. Like, it was just...
Oh, they knew us really well at the hospital. And I would say you would ask a nurse this or ask a social worker that, and they all had like different resources, but there wasn't really like a centralized hub in a sense of just resources to learn. And I just grabbed information from people I know. People introduced me to other NICU moms who had had NICU graduate babies and who had been through that process. And we were students of neonatology and students of preemies, just to really learn, how do you make decisions? How do you handle things? Like, what can we expect? Because they didn't really know how to handle an out-of-state preemie case, because it wasn't something that they were used to. And we had been learning and studying to be parents of a full-term baby. So this was all new to us. Out of our NICU experience, we launched A Million Little Miracles, which the goal and the mission of this nonprofit is really to serve NICU families and their communities, and really hopefully bring light to premature birth and preemies and the challenges that NICU families face in a new way and in a new light. And we hope that you will find encouragement in our nonprofit, but also in the story that we shared with you today, our story, the story of the birth of our daughter. Together, we can be a beacon of hope for NICU families and their communities.